Hello, everyone, and welcome to a surprise episode of By the Numbers. We've been on the road so fucking much. Me and Duncan have been doing so much other stuff. People probably forgot this is our regular time slot.
I wonder where you come from. What a surprise, because it's actually on time.
Yeah,
Fair
it's
enough.
a surprise because we're doing it as we fucking should be doing it. And there's plenty to talk about, even though we only did one 3 days ago. In fact, a lot of people were getting quite uppity, about the fact we didn't talk about Faze and everything else. So
That's always been a classic move in esports, isn't it? Where it's like, why didn't you talk about the thing that in my head is the most important? It's like, I don't want to break this news to you now, guys, because if you haven't figured out by now, it might trigger some sort of outbreak. But some of the things in your head that are the most important aren't actually either the most important or even relevant to other people. I know every single Fox fan right now, like, what the fuck does he mean about Fox?
Yeah, exactly. Bringing up Fox again. Yeah, exactly. Like it ain't their problem. So obviously, reminder, of course, that the channel is sponsored by Rivalry.gg. You can head over to Rivalry.gg/RLS and sign up for $350 VIP bonuses. And it's a way that you can place bets around esports, Counter-Strike being one of them, in a safe, ethical, friendly environment. Corralho. Right then. So I guess we should pick up where we were kind of gonna get into if we had the time. That's obviously the big news coming out of Faze. The inevitable move finally happened. The penny finally dropped for Kerrigan, former in-game leader, usurped by Nico mid-tournament. Nico said it's just temporary. Nah, I fucking lied. I'm in for life. I'm God Emperor Nico. But don't worry, we're totally going to make it work as 5. And then obviously they went and attended the Blast Pro Series over in Lisbon. Not a great showing from FaZe, it must be said. And lo and behold, Kerrigan has been benched. In other words, he's available to buy depending on his contract. Let's talk about it first of all from the FaZe perspective. And that is, of course, now they've got this opening for a player. I don't know if it's going to be an in-game leader. Don't have any real perspective because quite clearly Nico's the one calling the shots. I don't know why he would want to kind of hand the mantle over to another in-game leader who would come in. And as we've established many, many times over, it's not like there's a abundance of great in-game leaders out there that could just come into FaZe and do a job for them. So it also opens up the tantalizing prospect of them being able to go out and get a star player. And there's been many people that have been touted. There was an Instagram picture of the remaining FaZe guys seen with Cold Zera. Can't imagine MIBR would let him go, but who fucking knows? So I guess that's the first question, Duncan. Like, who do FaZe go out and get if they want to keep this dream team image intact?
That's got to be one of the weirdest angles to this imaginable, is that you've got the team that is perceived to have the most money and to have the quickest trigger to use it if they want it in the Faze Clan, obviously bought so much talent over the years. And yet, because, as you say, we have no clue whether they're actually trying to recruit an in-game leader or, quite frankly, what role. I mean, it could be any role whatsoever. That as a result, even though in theory it means everyone is potentially on the roster list, it feels to me like the opposite. Like, I feel like I can barely come up with any names that seem reasonable. Like, as you say, there's the ones from the past. So in the past, you go back far enough. There's Cold Zera was someone they wanted. Obviously, Simple, someone I've got to figure they've at least inquired about over the years when he had his tough times.
Yeah.
I mean, you go back far enough, names like Shocks were on the docket, Unfortunately, it's all-star players in the past because obviously they did have Kerrigan at the time. They were happy with him. So my biggest issue is this, is if they do indeed go with in-game leader, because from my perspective, that is still the role you need. Like, just as a long-term strategy alone. Like, even if Nico was great for a year, what's the odds he's going to do this for 5 years? It's just not really on the cards, is it? So at some point, you're going to need an in-game leader. My problem is this, is I have a real hard time trying to figure out someone that this team would simultaneously respect, but also is even vaguely available. Like, that's a real tough call to narrow that down right there, because if anything, if they don't respect someone like Kerrigan, who's left at that point? I mean, on a lower level, it reminds me of when MSL got kicked from North. And I thought to myself, okay, bad for him because obviously, he's going to get reset. He built this whole project at North. That was kind of his legacy. But I naively thought, you know what, there must be so many teams that are going to look at MSL and go, you know what, no matter what you think about him, he's a very good in-game leader. He can run a team, run stuff. That guy had fucking barely any suitors whatsoever. Apparently everyone in the community had a very different opinion to me. And hence why he ended up on Rogue. He wasn't getting courted by the big teams. So I actually really wonder for this one, who would corral Faze's interest in that sense? Who would they actually think was worth picking up?
I literally cannot think of an in-game leader of the caliber you would think.
That's why, if you remember, I think we touched on this briefly last episode, but I at least in the past, at some point, I know I've said on the show before, one of the only names I could think of is like, if he was available, Fallen. Because,
but then the entire MIBR project's a complete wash.
Yeah. So for me, that was more one if for me, that move could have happened if Cold Zero had gone to Team Liquid and then Fallen goes, right, fuck this if I've lost him, and then he goes as well. Like, that's the only way I could have seen the dominoes falling for that one, because at this point in time, especially with all the moves, that's just not on the table for anyone, is it? Like, Fallen sticking with MIBR. So beyond that, I mean, people... Like, I'm not reading chat, but if you want some shit, people start listing off real names that you could pick. I bet you're not going to find many. Like, if I have to pick one who's
there isn't.
I mean, Chris J's done a good job with Mouse, which is kind of like a Faze type team, but would they really recruit him to this team? Here's a little inside.
I don't even think Chris J and Nico could. I don't know if that's a marriage that wants to get fucking renewed.
This is a key point for people to understand. Is that players, especially star players, and remember, Faze is practically just filled from top to bottom with star players, have a very, very unique way of seeing the game. Because some of them, for example, only respect individual skill. It's bizarre. So if you're an in-game leader who's, as obviously they're typically not the most skilled, you just have to win. Or you have to seem to them like you're smarter than them. And therefore, that's the one thing they can kind of place it on. It's like, okay, you're not a skill, but you know what's going on in the game. If you don't have those qualities, there are plenty of people, like I just referenced there, that just wouldn't even get a look in from some of these teams. Like anyone, for example, who thinks that, like, I know this is a Reddit favorite, Sean Gares, right? Sean Gares can do no wrong. This guy literally, I can't imagine what this guy could ever do to reduce his career rep. Even though, by the way, he's essentially done fuck all for about 2 years now. But people will always throw his hat in the name for like any NA org team, right?
Sure.
Well, a Reddit fan might say, why not try someone like Sean Gares, really great in-game leader with history. Faze players don't have any interest in someone like Sean Gares. You see what I mean? Like, the list for them is so short. I could even agree with you. Maybe they just don't even get an in-game leader and they think to themselves, makeshift lineup and go with another star. Fucking put more.
Yeah, I think that's how it is. Because, I think that's how it is because, like, I can see a world where Exist ends up going back to Faze.
That can't be too crazy if you consider where Fnatic's at right now, right?
Yeah, I mean they just won that PLG event, which I'm not even registering that as a real event in my mind with all of the problems that they had. People complained about the PCs while they were out there. A lot of people were super pissed off. I mean, obviously, congrats to Fnatic for winning it or whatever. But I could honestly see Exist going back to Fnatic because here's the thing you got to remember. All the Faze players, for reasons that I will never understand, obviously seem to really respect Exist and like the idea of him being a stand-in. It was meant to be for one tournament. They extended that. They did win a tournament with him in the roster, if you remember. So
sure.
if they do need an in-game leader, which I have never classified Exist as, he's a player who happens to adopt the mantle of in-game leadership. He's not an in-game leader in any classical sense.
I always used to describe him this way, to like both give him the credit, but also not overblow. I always used to say someone like Exist to me is like just enough of an in-game leader that when he had an incredible team with some of the best players in the world, that's all he needed for that team. They didn't need like a really deep in-game leader who's got all the strats. No, if anything, those players are going to do what they're going to do. You just need just enough of of leadership to allow it to function. If anything, too much would be restrictive. Whereas you go the other way, I'll give as a contrast MSL. MSL's someone where, because he's going to implement such a strict system, if anything, he needs just enough skill to make it work. He doesn't need 10 star players or whatever, So like there's a massive spectrum in that sense. And actually, if anything, Rich, that's probably the reason why they'd consider him, because in their mind, I'm sure they probably think, oh, brilliant, that's exactly how we want to play. We kind of know how to play the game. So I personally, I wouldn't subscribe to that myself, but I could see that being the case.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't see. I've literally got all of the rosters of the top 30 teams in the world, according to HLTV, in front of me. And here's the first problem FaZe has. It doesn't even matter, in my opinion, if you wanted to pick up an in-game leader from a team above you, right? Let's go down the list. So Glaive, he's going nowhere. What the fuck would he leave Astralis for? You could pay him all the money in the world. I don't think he'd want to leave. It would be stupid. Zeus, lol. Right? Let's not even entertain that nightmare. Especially given that I will end career in 2019. Fucking thanks, mate. Nitro at Liquid. Well, he's not going anywhere. Fallen at MIBR, and then we've already fucking talked about Chris J, and then you've got FaZe at number 6. So then you move down. I mean, you got Lecro at NIP. It's not high caliber enough.
Again,
Daps from NRG. Yeah, exactly. Like Daps at NRG. God B,
I tell you what, God B's and Gap's are great examples because these are people where to varying degrees both run a great team, etc. Again, they're exactly great examples of people that Faze Clan players aren't going to respect. Like Faze Clan players, if I had to guess, have zero respect for Daps. Like they don't give a fuck. If anything, right, this is the way a star player's mind works. If NRG beats Faze Clan, so it happened earlier this year, it was ECS Season 5, they won like that best of 1 or whatever over Faze. In the brain of someone like Nico, he goes, either I didn't have a good enough game or whoever the other guy who went off is, Cirque, Breezy. Oh, he had a really great game. That's, in fact, you even hear it. This is one of the reasons why it's actually, you guys don't realize, it's actually a nightmare to talk to pro players. You feel like you get dumber sometimes. Like I've talked to pro players where I've watched an amazing tactical game with like, sort of like jousting back and forward by the in-game leaders. And I've seen where they've like picked up on like how adapted to how someone was playing a certain spot. Then you go and talk to a player who's an entry fragger, or he's just like the star player who gets everything catered to him in the game. And then, he does frag everyone's head off. And this guy's talking and he's just going like, nah, they just got lucky, like I just missed like a shot in the last round. Like I never should have dropped the gun there. Like, you're like, what? Like, I mean, I guess that did happen, but that was never even vaguely near my top of my priority. Like their way of seeing the game is so alien.
Oh yeah, but I mean, it's I think it's almost endemic at how you experience the game on any level. It's like you're there looking at your screen, pressing your keys, moving your mouse, and killing opponents that come on your screen. And like this idea that like top players have this, it's very rare that a lot of them have this incredible holistic view where they can see all the pieces moving, all at once, like it's some sort of fucking 3-dimensional, real-time chess, and the players that typically can do that very often mechanically are deficient. I'm sure Stiko counts as a player that can see all of the parts, understands what everyone should be doing, understands the game on a very cerebral level, but I mean mechanically he's not the best by any stretch. So yeah, you find yourself in this weird position. Now,
speaking of which, by the way, there's another angle to this that makes it even more of a ridiculously small Venn diagram overlap of who it could be. Not only does it have to be someone who's good enough that has their attention, it can't be someone, for example, it can't be probably Daps or Existence or God B. These aren't names they're going to consider. So you already have to basically be near their level. On top of that, they have to like you. But this is the real killer for me. You'd also have to be someone who's such a confident person in your own abilities that you could actually command a team like that.
Yeah.
Because there might be someone they like as a mate, but if you bring that guy in, he's going to fucking crumble fast in a massive game with all these star players if he's losing,
I mean, so I think in reality, what's likely to happen here is FaZe decide that Nico's going to stay as the IGL.
That's almost certainly what's happens, mate.
Yeah, so now, okay, well, which players do you want to go out and get? And again, honestly, it's a similar issue. I mean, like you think about the players that are kind of either going into free agency or are in free agency or being touted as being up for sale or whatever. I mean, again, like no disrespect to Tarek, not good enough for FaZe, doesn't have that like star power in the same degree as other names you would associate in there. They're not going to get anyone from Liquid. Na'Vi, it seems, to just fucking ride or die.
I saw it was implied somewhere. Like, I believe there's a Zeus quote that says something about Simple, let's see if he leaves a team at the end of the year or something. So I believe Simple might again be on the cards in that sense. Then again, you've got to convince him to leave. I mean, to be fair, he might be one of those people who thinks his team's doing well enough. Who knows? You never know with those
well, sure, but I don't even think it's that. I think Simple would leave to play with FaZe. I think there's no doubt about it. I think honestly he would just leave to get away from the Zeus Edward nightmare that I think is a bitter pill that he has to swallow all the time. That's only fucking made it's only sweetened by how much money that they pay to keep him around, and the fact that, well, apart from those two, you do get to choose players like Electronic to come into the roster. Like Simple does have a lot of leeway in that regard. At FaZe, he probably wouldn't have it, but then again, he wouldn't have Zeus and Edward fucking dragging him down, you know? So,
oh, and by the way, here's an interesting detail for people who don't know. Like, even though I personally have never been someone who bought into the idea of like stacking super teams of all the players, you know? So, for example, as I've mentioned many times on this show, even when FaZe rocked that ESL New York event 2 years ago,
yeah,
I actually thought to myself, fucking hell, I think it's a one-off. Like, I don't think this ever happens again, you know, because it's so crazy to put that many star players in. Don't worry, star players do not think that way. They all really believe, like, first of all, this is the ego of some of the star players. They all believe that, like, CS is like a linear hierarchy and they can do everything that everyone below them does, except maybe in-game lead. Maybe some of them would say, oh, maybe I couldn't in-game lead, you know. Like, they think they could be the lurker and the support player. They think they can do everything. So as a result, by the same logic, it follows, therefore, that every star player could do every role, in which case, of course, we'd recruit Snacks to Mouse Sports. Of course, we'd get Simple into FaZe and then still expect we're going to live in a world where Guardian's got space and fucking Nico's got space. Like these guys, it's weird because I guess it's because they never have to think about that, do they? Someone creates space for them.
Exactly, yeah.
They very rarely do it for anyone else. So in their brain, they don't get it. I always give this analogy, right? Of like, there've been some basketball teams that were constructed where you can tell the person who made the team didn't think of like, how will it fit together? He just thought, let me get the best player on every deal I can. And that sounds like a good strategy, but sometimes they literally ended up with teams where like two people literally even stand at the same place on the floor to get their favorite shot. So like one dude's just having to go like, right, it's your turn now. So I just stand over here and watch you take your shot. And then I, you know, like exactly the way you'd never create a team. Like you'd rather have a worse player then who didn't play that position, but you can, sadly, a lot of star players, they will always fall into that angle. And also you've got to add in, and this to me is the ultimate flaw of Faze Clan, comes down to this, in my opinion, is the idea that when it's time to look for blame, well, I'm not looking at you. You've won all the majors all off. Rain, you're really sick, mate. Guardian, fucking legend. I can't hope like he can. Who's number 5? Like fifth position in FaZe now is the new 5th spot in fucking NIP. I'm telling you right now. If they don't win with this next guy, the next guy will be one fucking out, you know.
So what we're left with is almost like kind of a fantasy draft. For me, you know, there's one like we've talked about Crims as a possibility in the past, like him and Olaf having that good like synergy. I think everybody would love that. I don't know if that would happen. We've also touted Automatic as well because, you know, maybe he leaves Cloud9. That one's not as tantalizing a prospect for me, but I think Automatic is the kind of player that could go to FaZe and build on his reputation and play particularly well. But the move that I think more and more I would probably like to see, and is a realistic one in terms of just availability, value for money, and players having the, you know, respecting him, would be Valda from North.
Sure.
Getting picked up for FaZe. I mean, North are just kind of nowhere at the moment. They got, you know, Kerrigan as an IGL, and they're really kind of struggling. I think Valda's proven that he's like the fucking, you know, just the god tier all rounder in that lineup. And if FaZe had the ability to go out and get him, which I'm sure they do, I'm sure they've got the spending power, Valda would be at 100%. Like, I think he would be someone that would fit in the FaZe and make them immediately a much more cohesive unit. Now, I know a lot of people in the chat going, no, not him. It's definitely like, you need to go watch this guy play. If you think he's not good enough,
as in they think he's not good enough to be on FaZe.
Yeah, that's what some people in the chat are saying. Madness. I guess not everyone watches Counter-Strike that watches this podcast.
Like, here's the thing I would say about Valde. First of all, he does have some pretty good numbers, but he is a player where his game goes way beyond the stats on the page. Like, put it this way, I'm not exaggerating. It's not just because he's Danish as well. He has like some fucking zip nicks in him, except the difference is he's got mad skills as well. So like, this guy is really legit.
Yeah, and like I say, I think North is a project that's kind of floundered a little bit. I honestly don't see. I mean, like we talked about some teams, like on the last episode, about teams that are likely to climb up the rankings and break into that top 10. North are currently sat at 11. They're in real danger of getting, you know, jumped over by some of these teams that are on the come up. And
that reminds me, there's one name that you have to consider, because I believe I heard that he'd already had an offer in the past. Sonny from Faze Clan.
Yeah, well, yeah. So Sonny from Mouse Sports, obviously. Yeah, yeah. But well, here's the thing with that. First of all, I don't know if Mouse Sports would let him go. Again, let's work on the premise that, sure, it's Faze, so you can't say no to them. But also, I don't really know if he is as well regarded. Now, this is the interesting thing. Obviously, Sonny is somebody who's made a huge difference in mouse sports. Like, been one of the best players, consistently every time mouse sports has had a successful run. But I don't know what the likes of an Olaf Meister or a Nico think about Sonny. Do they think he's a kind of middle of the pack player playing in a team that's kind of punching above its weight? Do they think he's like the best player in that team, but actually not good enough to hang with the likes of us? And plus, as you said, coming in and being fifth and getting all the bitch rolls, I don't know if that's going to be something that's going to benefit Sonny and make him stand out. Like, certainly, Valda he plays a lot of supportive roles and historically has done in his career. I don't think he's going to mind getting the bitch roles. He's a smart enough player with a broad enough skill set to make it work. But I agree with you. I think in principle, Sonny is probably a target, on their shortlist as they're looking at him. I also think as well that if Sonny was to somehow go to Ents, Ensa, and replace, one of the players, probably Ariel, I suppose. Ariel, or no, it would have to be Ariel, I think. But whatever, like I think that their stock goes up immensely, and then he gets the benefit. Every Finnish person wants to play in Finland.
Sure, of course.
So it's a really tough one. I mean, here's the difference compared to where we were at the start of this year to where we are at the end of this year. There are no obvious moves for FaZe in terms of getting a really, really good fifth. I saw somebody saying, maybe Shox has had enough at G2 and he goes to FaZe for a payday. I honestly think that would be a disaster for FaZe. I think Shox is very temperamental still. I think without having his French buddies around him, I don't think they get the best out of him. But yeah, it's like...
For people who don't know, by the way, like I would say this for most of the French players, with the exception of like NBK is the obvious one, because NBK has been someone who's been like fraternizing with non-French people his entire career, pretty much. He was kind of like the designated person who goes and talks to the people who don't speak French. But beyond him and one or two other people, forget any one French being in a team like this. Like the French players, no joke, to this day, even when they all speak English now and all are friends with a lot of people who aren't French players, they spend 99% of their time at events together. Like even if they're in rival teams like Envious and G2, they spend all their time together outside of the event. They spend their time together at the event. They spend all their time like as a tight-knit group. That's why the whole like emotional angle is what gets you booted out those teams more than even playing like a shit player. So I think someone like Shox, even beyond in-game stuff, like maybe you can make the in-game angle work. I don't think he would fare well in a team where, people in theory could just go their own separate ways once the game's done. It's like, well, I'm from fucking Bosnia. You're from Sweden. What the fuck do we have in common? Oh, that's right, we're playing FaZe. We're not playing now. So yeah, like I don't think he would survive in that sense. I think he'd get really like demotivated unless they were winning everything.
Yeah, so this is like I say, it's interesting. Usually, I mean, if people have watched like the last few episodes when the transfers have been happening, we've actually like took a guess, and I'd say 9 times out of 10 we've been right with a move that's subsequently then gone on to happen. With this, I just do not know what FaZe need to do, and you'll also notice as well. With MIBR, there's like a list of names and all this speculation's rampant, and we'll talk about this in a moment, but they're coming out and saying, oh, it's all speculation, no decisions have been made, etc., etc., etc. But with FaZe, there isn't even a lot of speculation about who that fifth person is going to be. I think the community and journalists, I think FaZe themselves are pretty fucking stumped, honestly.
I think I fucked up again, Rich. Like, here's one of the problems with esports, and I've mentioned this before, but I'll reiterate it in a different way. I have told most of the owners who I'm sort of friendly with, who ask me my advice and stuff, not the ones who just ask us random things, people you talk to in the past, they're giving you tips and stuff. I always tell them, listen, either you do this now or in 6 months or a year, you're going to have the idea and kick yourself if you didn't do it. You all need to start maintaining a contract database of when people's contract ends, because this is stupidity that you're going to let your players and 2 lands that go badly mean that you have to now, within a 2-week span, sign a player. And whoever's available, you have to do that. And if you hit the window wrong, you might get the same player, but for 5 times more. And if you hit the window right, you might get them for free. And
you've got to be registered by the first. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Something like that, But like, you know what I mean? Like, they don't think this through. And so as a result, just as we said with G2, that last episode, like they couldn't have picked a worse time to want to do roster moves than now. They've let all the players go to Vitality. LDLC signed all the new players, and there's no one else. Even fucking Kiyashima was already gone. There's nobody left for you to sign unless you want to spend massive money for someone who's not worth the big gamble. Same thing for Faze Clan. If we're talking 2-3 months ago, there's all sorts of players they could be getting now. They even maybe could have made a break for a cold zero type person. Definitely kick out Kerrigan right after MIBR is definitely getting Brazilian players, and there's zero chance you can get them. Like, if you were a GM, they're the shittest GMs of all time. The GMs of fucking G2 and Faze, congrats, you are the shittest GMs of 2018. You haven't thought it through whatsoever.
Well, so here's something else, I suppose, because like we'll segue now into talking about Kerrigan. Obviously, Kerrigan's been benched, and when they use the wording benched, that means he's still under contract, but we are looking to offload him. Now, by contrast to what's going on with Faze, Kerrigan's got all the fucking options, in my opinion. I can name you teams that Kerrigan could go into like tomorrow and improve, and like I even think teams above Faze.
Of course.
You know, like to be honest, I know that everybody loves Nitro. I just the prospect of fucking Kerrigan having Naf, Elise, Stewie 2K, and Twists to fucking work with. If anybody can, you know, break the paradigm of Astralis, it's Kerrigan. I mean, shit, he was the Astralis paradigm originally. So, I mean, that would be amazing. Speaks fluent English. Obviously, everybody in Liquid's all best buds, so Nitro's not going to go anywhere. But, like, that to me would be a power move. That would be a statement of intent that you're going to take these 4 incredible young talents and you're going to give them a seasoned in-game leader to work with, and one who has a track record of taking teams when they're floundering and just making them better and finding a way to win short-term as well as long-term. So, I mean, sure, like Mouse Sports, there's room for him in there somewhere. I don't exactly know how it would work, but it could work. I think my views on Zeus are pretty, you know, obvious. I think Kerrigan's a much better player than Zeus to begin with, and honestly, I think this idea of Zeus as an incredible tactician is kind of a little bit overplayed. I think he's more of a motivational IGL, and he rules with an iron fist. He's the drill sergeant. That's his style of doing things. I'd like to see what the likes of Flamey, Simple, and Electronic could do with the, you know, leadership by committee and managing big egos and big personalities and making everybody feel good, you know, what Kerrigan does. So I think he's got unbelievable options. The obvious one everyone's talking about is that he'll probably be going to Optic. Bad times for Snappy. But I think that's too far down, honestly. Yeah, I mean, like, no disrespect to Optic. I think Kerrigan is just better than the 15th team in the world. If I was Cadian, I'd be fucking sweating.
I can already tell you now, mate. I know the way fans' minds work because I always try to keep my pulse, like my finger on the pulse, so that I know how to frame the context of my video. So if I know most people sort of disagree with the concept, then I'm still going to make my point. But now I'm going to have to lay the case fully out, you know, blah blah blah, etc. So I can tell you already, most people have the most ridiculous recency bias you can ever imagine. It's worse even than games like fucking League of Legends, where like the actual tournament structure promotes recency bias. In CSGO, Kerrigan is a shit in-game leader in the minds of most fans, because if Nico doesn't want him, and if star players don't want him, and if he didn't win all these championships, then how could he be good? I'd go the obvious opposite way on that one and tell you this. Who the fuck do you think helped them get into all those finals and semi-finals? What, just Nico just playing really well? No, I've seen that already happen a whole bunch of times. It was a guy who actually, yeah, maybe he couldn't get the ball over the line in the very big moments, but every other motherfucking moment, that's why he had them poised to do all that shit, you know. So I'd personally, I'm not exaggerating, take out the top 10 teams in the world, ignore Astralis because they win everything. I would put Kerrigan in any of those other teams. Even as you say, I'd even take a gamble if I'm Na'Vi and say, fuck it, Zeus wants to retire anyway, let's try and speak in English. Kerrigan's the guy that could do it. Again, I agree with you. I think every single team, the two on paper that, as you say, should literally just be sending a blank check is North and Optic. Like, they're the ones on, it's like, come on, mate. You've got talent here we're not using. They're all Danish. And, you know, even the storyline of like, you come back home to a Danish team is a fucking great marketing move. But forget that. Yeah, as you say, they're if anything, those teams are too far down. If I'm another team, this is like when you have the opportunity to trade for like a troubled, like, superstar player in a sport. Yeah, it's still a gamble. Might not work out for you. But if it does, you win everything. Of course, you go for that. Like anyone who could, like, for example, the best example here, Rich, would be Chris J and Nitro, in fact, both those players. The reason why those are two great ones is because fans are going to say, yeah, but they do a good job. Yeah, but look what they've done so far. Yeah, I'm with you on that completely. The problem is they're not Kerrigan. Kerrigan could be the one that could take you to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, with Chris J, it's like I think he'd still have to play in Mouse Sports, and then you're back to Stico. Yeah, does Stico get fucking dropped again, so quickly after coming back? That'd kind of suck for him. But look, the other obvious team I think that should be writing a blank check for Kerrigan is Cloud9. Golden, I know the kid can't get a fucking break, but he's got these ongoing health problems. Flush is acting as the de facto kind of in-game leader.
Think about this, Rich. Cloud9 right now looks like fucking Faze Clan when Kerrigan joined. It's just a mess of players who could be good in a different team. In this team, they're a bunch of nothing, and they need a proper in-game league. Now, admittedly, Golden has had a lot of time with this lineup. I'll give him credit for that. But again, sorry, Golden isn't Kerrigan.
No, he's not. And look, he's got this ongoing health issue, which he can't fly. Stress exacerbates it. It's a goddamn tragedy that, he's been backstabbed out of fucking Fnatic, and then he gets a good opportunity, and then he gets a health problem. Some motherfuckers are just born unlucky, like you just never get the fucking breaks you deserve. Cloud9 can't be thinking about that. Again, I've said it, like, don't get that maudlin sentimentality going on. What you got to look at is, first of all, Kerrigan and Kiyashima, low key, it is a god tier pairing. That was why Kiyashima was able to stay in Faze for as long as he did when Kerrigan was there. Kerrigan was under pressure to have bigger names in there. Absolutely not. Kerrigan knows how to get the best out of Kiyashima. That is something that will definitely work. Plus, a smart player like Flusher working alongside Kerrigan, I think that's something that should be exciting. And I think, honestly, what might just get the adrenaline pumping again, because I think Russian Automatic, not as much Automatic, who's been the best player in the team, but I think a little bit of motivation wouldn't go amiss. Something to give him, get the adrenaline pumping again, and a bit of belief going in the Cloud9 camp. You've got Kerrigan. He's a fucking legendary in-game leader who knows how to make disparate parts work. This for me is like a no-brainer. Like, if Jack ends up watching this fucking podcast, because I know he does from time to time, trust me, you cannot fail. You're ranked 16th in the world right now. Your in-game leader's got health problems. What more do you need? I shouldn't even.
I'll give you another angle. Done. Here's another great angle if you are an actual owner who's listening. Okay, here's the thing. If you are Mouse Sports, if you are Team Liquid, the reason why you should recruit Kerrigan is you've already got all the pieces. The idea is you're getting one of the people who's one of the most famous in-game leaders for using the stars he has and getting the best out of them. I know everyone now thinks, it's just Clave who did that in Astralis. No. Astralis had a whole year where they went off the boil with Kerrigan. Before that, you have to look at this whole career. He took them to a level they'd never been at before. I don't know if there would be an Astralis for Glaive to pick up if Kerrigan hadn't been there. So don't write him off at that one. But you look at that Faze Clan he walked into. I'll just reiterate this for people who forget this, because they think of some of the players. Well, I remember, Rain's a good player, and Kiyoshiba's a good player, and Izzy, he should be a better player than he is now. Faze Clan in 2016, when Kerrigan joined, had not made the playoffs of a single tournament the entire year. Think how he joined. They made the playoffs of all the tournaments that year. They were making top fours at tournaments. They were immediately legends at the major. Overnight, the guy turned it all around. So that's one of the big problems I have with that one. Is people really underestimate that one. But that's if you join the team where they're ready now. If you want to join a team like Cloud9 and you're Jack, here's also why you recruit Kerrigan. Because when you bring Kerrigan in, just like he did with Faze Clan, he will very quickly figure out which of these players should stay and which ones you should let go. Once you've done that, if you're someone like Jack, who I know has money to spend, but you're not going to spend it unless you think it's worth it, that's exactly the player you want, is someone like Kerrigan, because he'll tell you, you know what, all I need now is this piece here. Give me this piece here, and you got yourself a championship squad. And within 2 moves, you're back to the top. Whereas right now, I don't care what you think of Golden and Kiyoshiba. Right now, Cloud9 is a long way from getting back to being a relevant elite team. If anything, at the moment, they've almost painted themselves in a corner with the whole, do you stay European? Do you go back to North? They're in a tough spot right now. Someone like Kerrigan could be the fixer for you.
Yeah, no doubt. And this is what I mean. I mean, you can see right here, we have listed 5 teams that I think it's, obviously you never know, but I think that there's not many arguments you could make to say would be worse off without him. So he's got all these options. It's really weird that it seems to be only Faze that he had to, he cannot play in it. It's it's only FaZe or Astralis. They're the only two teams that couldn't find room for Kerrigan out of all the teams in the world. Everyone else would probably benefit from having him on board.
So rare you ever get a move like that. That's why I say I hope for this one, people really are just all contacted. Basically, if you aren't FaZe and Astralis, every single person should be contacted. Even if you think it's a 1% chance you get him. Because the idea is if I'm contacting Kerrigan and I'm not Team Liquid, I'm trying to make it a package or something like, hey, you come in, you get to decide a player, like, I'd change these things for you. We'd give you like facility, I'd be trying to sell a whole angle because again, this could turn the whole franchise around.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And like I say, I mean, if I was the betting person, I want to say North or Optic. I think they're the most likely outcomes. The
funny thing is, I actually think the North one is the one that would bring the most value because even though on paper the players in Optic are better, the North one is the one where most of the players feel like they aren't used correctly. Like they all feel like, they're underwhelming. Why isn't this guy better? Why isn't that guy better? Again, that's exactly the sort of player who can fix that for you.
And honestly, let's be clear here. There's a world where Optic just cut this Danish lineup entirely and decide to go back to NA or whatever because that's their bread and butter primarily. They moved away from having an NA team, moved into this Danish experiment. It hasn't worked out.
I'm already amazed they haven't just made the roster move yet. And even worse, they don't. If you noticed, Optic's one of the only teams, as underwhelming as they are, but with as much resources, that you don't even hear rumblings that they're going to get cut or kicked or whatever. At least in G2, as much as everyone liked to hate on G2, the reason why they cut this lineup is they actually were giving this team like hard and fast, placings. Like if you don't place X at CS Summit, we will consider, at least they were getting like performance metrics. In Optic, it's so bizarre to me because the vibe in the team is super chill. People don't seem like they're under pressure. Yeah, as I did a tweet the other day, I did a tweet that was about two of these players actually. When Astralis won that tournament, EPL, I said, don't forget two members of the classic Astralis lineup. Obviously, Kerrigan, as I alluded to, would be available. And the other one people would forget is Cajun B. I mean, as far as I've heard, like his contract ends in a few months. This is someone who will be available. So these are people you can potentially get because Optic's a shit show at the moment.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, look, I think if Kerrigan went to North and replaced Kerrigan, then obviously you would naturally say, okay, if we could get one of the player from Optic, assuming Optic capitulates, obviously Config's the big name. I mean, look, I've known Cage many, many years. I think he's a good player. I think he's getting on in years. I think his best is behind him. Whereas Config, he's a mouthy little cunt, but he's got fucking real potential. I don't even think we've seen the best from Config yet. I think there's a world where with the right in-game leader and the right team around him, fucking Config can go supernova. Now, you take Kerrigan, put him on North Acadian, you take out Gaiden, you put Config onto that North roster, so it's Kerrigan, AZ, Kiebi, Config, and Valda. That's a fucking team. But this is what I mean. It's like, it's all fucking theory crafting right now. Like, these are the phone calls I would be making if I was any top 10 team. But it's like you say, it's right now, you've got like 2 weeks before you need to sign people so they're ready to go for the major.
Yeah.
You have not got a big window to get this right. And I think a lot of people are going to either hold out for big buyouts, which can never be realized realistically in the current climate, or they're going to have to end up settling for players that are way down the food chain. And we as fans are going to be left dreaming of what could have been. And we're not going to find out until the end of the first quarter. So I think it's a shame. But as I said, Kerrigan's holding all the fucking cards. Like he's going to, wherever he ends up, he's going to be on a big fat fucking contract and he's going to be living the dream. I mean, it's FaZe that have got
there's
shoes
another
to fill,
angle
in my
you
opinion.
can go with as well, is if you are a team that's lower down in the rankings, offer him a fucking god tier salary. Tell him, you know what, maybe you're at the end of your career, maybe you've only got a couple of years left. So, you know what, I'll pay you twice what anyone else will pay you. Build my team up. We might not win, but, we'll be way better. Give us a chance. Make us a contender.
Well, that's why the Optic move has always felt likely to me. Because Optic could obviously just cut him a fucking super salary. And Snappy, I mean, come on, let's be real. Like, I don't think I've ever seen an in-game leader get so much love and so much respect and so much hype in such a short space of time as that dude. Because it's like, okay, you did a half-decent job at Heroic. And then before we knew what we were talking about, it was like, everyone was like, oh, let's get Snappy into a better team. And Snappy. And I'm like, hang on, guys, he's not even a
It's because, I'll be honest, right? He was the hipster pick for a lot of people. There's a lot of people where their hipster angle is like, what would the angle no one would think of to go with this? And then they come out with some shit like, I think fucking Yogi's the best opera in Denmark. It's like, all right, mate. Well, listen, you know it's only cool to be a hipster if you actually know what you're talking about. Like, you can't just pull an opinion out your ass, can you? Come on.
Yeah, well, they certainly did, and it's like, listen, I think Snappy's a functional in-game leader. I think he can be an in-game leader for a top 20 team. But if you've got serious aspirations of winning tournaments, and you have world-class players around you, Snappy's not the guy for that. Snappy is the guy who takes the little fledgling players with, no egos and no reputations, and he gets you a miracle semi-final that nobody foresaw. That's him.
He's some sort of David Moyes type motherfucker, isn't he? You don't want to give him the big job. He'd collapse instantly.
Yeah, exactly. So look, while we're talking about transfer sagas, obviously the other one that's been going on is the MIBR. A few more details that I thought were kind of interesting and worth talking about. On the last show we were talking about was KNG going to be back into MIBR. Now, there was a rumor, this was up on Reddit, apparently, according to Brazil ESPN, I think it was, KNG was looking likely to join, but Noah vetoed it. The players wanted KNG, but Noah said no. Well, yeah, respect. We did a whole segment wrecking him, of course.
You can come back. So it's never too late. It's turned the corner.
It's never too late. I'll stand by that. I'll stand by that segment. You go show that apology. You fucking master puppet asshole. I'll stand by it all. I don't give a fuck. But apparently, this is what the journalists have been saying. Now, keep in mind, all the Brazilian players and everything are all got, have all said and dead. The coaches said it's all speculation. People don't know what they're talking about. But it is now looking more and more likely. It's been, confirmed by.
By the way, for anyone who doesn't know, again, I'll give you the translation there. For anyone who thinks that is to be taken on face value, and that when they say it's all lies and speculation, that means it's not true. I've had players tell me, that's not true, that move, and I said, well, actually, I know it is. Look, this person, I won't say who actually has said it themselves, not even, I'm talking like privately to me, and behind the scenes to multiple people, and it wasn't even off the record. And then they just said, all right, how did you know that then?
Yeah.
These people are full of shit. You have to realize, guys, how many times does a player have to lie? I'll give you a great example. So remember at least he was smart enough to give himself plausible deniability. The second that news broke that Stewie 2K is going to go to Team Liquid because they're getting these players, Stewie 2K did a tweet that was along the lines of it's all bullshit or something. But he purposely made it so it wasn't connected to anything. It was just happened to be fortuitous timing. You know how many players will lie to your face about a move that not only is going to happen, has already been signed. There's people who do that. I'm not saying this one, but I've seen it happen way too many. And the mad thing is they have literally. What's mad is no one ever calls them on this shit afterwards. It's like that the goldfish brain just gets deleted and they go, well, you did shine for him. It's like, all right, mate, whatever you say. Remember Fallen saying he'd never be in fucking SK Gaming. What more do you need? These motherfuckers are lying to your face.
So it does look more likely that it is going to be Phelps. I mean, generally on the Brazilian moves, if ESPN Brazil commits to a fucking report, it's usually accurate. So what do you make of this? It looks like the new look MIBR will have the
look MIBR.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the king is dead. Long live the king. Really, really, really weird because, look, I think we all know that the lineup, with Taco and Phelps had its problems, right? So just for those who are, maybe new, Fallen, Cold Zero for Taco and Phelps. We all knew it had its problems, in particularly on certain maps. When Phelps and Fur were playing together, they didn't seem to have a lot of chemistry. I mean, most notably Inferno was one of them. But so why do they think it can work now? Is it because they've, expanded, like Taco and Phelps have expanded as players, or Fallen has a renewed appreciation for them? I was like, fucking hell, guys, it actually wasn't all that bad. Like, I've been closer to rock bottom with this lineup than we ever were with that lineup. So why do they want to roll back the years specifically to a lineup that they themselves seem to think couldn't work?
I mean, the obvious first thing is that the KNG move couldn't happen, so they couldn't make that lineup happen. And beyond that, let's face it, there's not many. And KNG was uniquely positioned in that he'd fucked his career up so much. He was available and actually might be a good player to pick up, which is very rare in Counter-Strike at the moment. If you don't want to pay some insane buyout, so getting that out of the way initially. There's a great quote. Sadly, I don't remember the person who said it, but I remember hearing it in like a Terence McKenna talk where he said that there was this concept this guy had about history, that any time a culture gets into trouble, what they do is they reach back into history for the last like sane moment they had where they felt like, they understood who they were as a people and where they were and what succeeded. And they reach back to that and they say, right, let's just go back to that. Everything was a mistake. We have to go back basically. You've seen it happen in Counter-Strike. Think about like, how many times so Fnatic remaking that IL lineup from 2016 where they just literally put the same team back together exactly as it was. You've seen it happen many, many times. KGB coming in and out of the Danish lineups. Obviously, Virtus.pro just refusing to ever change the team, thinking that we can stick with what used to work. Like, this is a mentality a lot of people have because it suggests basically that you have no clue what to do now. You don't know what direction to go in. Like, do you want to pick up young players? Well, I mean, that could work out worse than the current lineup. So their logic, as far as I can tell, is like that. It's like, right, this was the last time we had a lineup that at least, had most of the pieces working, actually did have success, was a top team. I mean, people will forget, even the last tournament where they had Phelps technically as the stand in that major, they lost in the third map to the eventual champion of the fucking major. Like, they were in the semi-finals. That was legit as fuck. I even ran this number for people. I think people are taking that Phelps lineup and they're way over-exaggerating its failures. I'll go ahead and tell you its failures right now. Okay, it was the best team up until PGL Krakow, and then it lost at PGL Krakow to Strats. Remember, they'd won all those tournaments before. After PGL Krakow, they lost to Team Liquid a few times. In the semi-finals, they then had the E-League Premier. They bombed that. That was it. That's it. Like, beyond that, most tournaments were fucking dynamite. Their idea of a bad tournament, this is like the Faze Clan mentality. It's like, oh, we had a really bad spell. Already made semi-finals a few times. It's like, I hope teams like you. I said this, I've mentioned this anecdote many times before. I told people like JW, I'm just waiting for the day, mate, where you come back down to earth and realize that a semi-final can be a good result for some people. For you, it's bad because you think you should win every tournament. Just wait till you're on the team where you're going out last place, or like making one round of 8 is like your best result in 3 months. They've been back to that world now in MIBR and SK, obviously earlier in the year as SK. So all of a sudden it's starting to look like, hey, you know what? If we were to get Phelps back, and obviously Tackle, we know him, he's proven himself elsewhere. If we were to get Phelps back, what if we could work with him this time? What if this time we can, like, it's tantalizing because it makes you feel like you got the one piece to work on instead of the whole lineup.
And of course, the big difference would be that they would have Zeus as the coach.
Exactly.
With
he wasn't
that lineup,
there, remember? Because he
wasn't there at that time.
That was the flaw they had, was that with the old lineup, I could see why they thought to themselves, do we need Zeus? We're the best team in the world. Every piece in the team makes sense. We've got the right mix of veterans and newer players. I bet they fucking found themselves when they had that Phelps lineup thinking to themselves, I bet we wish we had Zeus here right now. Someone who could work on this guy, and it's not us in the game having to work on him, That can be worth its weight in gold with the right type of player.
Yeah. So it's interesting. There was another thing, because Phelps is clearly third choice. There was obviously the KNG issue.
Oh, Discord's out of freeze.
Guys.
There we go, we're back. That was Discord
what
that
happened?
time. Discord server, a little freeze when it's saying about.
Oh, okay, no worries. Maybe he put his foot down, or maybe it was just a revisitation of, there's these visa issues that are going to come up if we go down this route again, whatever. But there was obviously this other young player who's been on the come up called K Serato, who plays for a team called Furia. Now, what was interesting was, I think, from reading between the lines about this move, K Serato definitely wanted to go. Like, K Serato is a player who is highly regarded. He's on the come up, and the Furia organization wanted a buyout of reputedly $200,000, which is a lot for a young, unproven player coming out of a substandard Brazil lineup. But there's, with Brazil law, again, there was a Reddit thread about this, but I happen to know this anyway because of football. There's a law in Brazil for sports contracts that you can charge like just an insane amount for a buyout, like 200, 400 times the salary. And it was something they implemented to protect the Brazilian soccer players getting bought out by Europeans. Right? Yeah. It was to stop them losing all their
players were on fuck all when they're on like Newell's Old Boys, and then if PSV comes, you want them to pay a fuck ton, right?
Exactly. So it was a way of basically like protecting, first of all, retaining the best talent if they wanted to, because it made them effectively unaffordable, but also making sure they didn't just get rinsed based on economies of scale. And this is translated over into esports. Now, I saw the Furia owner. He publicly said, "Oh, they wanted a player with more experience." I'll go out and say this is bullshit. I think basically he said 200,000. The rumors are that Phelps is only going to be 150K. Dead intimated on Twitter that maybe the buyout was even more. And I think there was a tweet from one of the players. I don't know if you can find this, Sam, but it was I think one of the Brazilian guys.
It was Fur, I think.
Yeah, Fur. Yeah, that was it. Fur tweeted out saying Furia celebrating, it's like them celebrating a prison party, implying that Kei Serato was imprisoned. So what do you make of all of this? This is a 19-year-old kid who has great rating, great potential, could be like the next Cold Zero if Fallen is able to mold him accordingly, and he's been kind of shackled, if you like, with this contract that he has with Furia. And to me, I think 200,000 is unreasonable. It's an unreasonable amount to request. What do you think?
Here's the thing that's extremely suspicious. The thing that draws all the red flags for me is the owner of that team coming out and first of all giving any fucking reason as to why a player isn't leaving his team. What do you mean? Surely you don't want to sell him? No? Well, then they wouldn't meet the amount, right? No, it's because they want an more experienced player. What business of yours is that out of interest? Why are you saying that? Nobody says that. Team Liquid doesn't come out and go, we were trying to get this player, but you know what? In the end, he wanted to go to Faze Clan. Why would you be talking? You didn't do a deal. What are you talking about? That sounds to me like someone trying to cover up with a smoke screen for the fact he did charge too much for a player who desperately wanted to go and take this opportunity. And now the player has been told effectively by MIBR, they're charging way too much, mate. We want to make the deal happen, but it's just too much for us. And then he has to now go back. And obviously the owner has two best case scenarios. He gets mega paid or he keeps the player and he has the player's talent. Problem is when the player comes home and he knows that you did imprison him, he's not going to really want to play for you anymore. And in fact, if you're not a top team, he might even want to make a move to a smaller team, whatever it might be. So in this scenario, that seemed to me like that was a message sent publicly to the player himself. That had fuck all to do, as far as I can tell, with any other team, with anyone else. Because by that logic, okay, cool, right. You know what, mate? How much was it? 200K. I'll go get someone who can buy him right now. What, you still going to sell that yet? Don't think so, Smell. That just has, I'm sorry, even though I don't have any reason, I don't say I have any inside source, that just smacks of bullshit to me. It's one of those ones where it's it's not what you said. It's why would you say that? That's the angle, right? It's like that. It's like that classic line about how you can tell when someone's lying if they're incredibly obstinate when they are like, I'm telling the truth. Look, I'm really telling the truth this time. It's like, why would you say that every time? Why would you normally just tell me something and then sit back and chill? It's conspicuous now, even though in isolation you think you got away with it because what you said wasn't wrong. Yeah, of course I could be given the info. So I think there's some bullshit going there personally. Just my read.
Yeah, no, I think so too. What do you make of it overall from the move, though? The fact that they did look at a young and proven talent before they looked at Phelps.
Yeah, I think if anything, first of all, if there's one thing we can conclude after the Stewie 2K Tarek thing is let's just go back to Brazilian players. Until that wells run dry, why take a massive gamble? Because if there's one thing that actually kills me about this move, it's one of the reasons I was very skeptical about Stewie 2K and that team, is when I look at teams like NIP, Virtus.pro, SK, the ones I talked about last episode, where their main quality wasn't even just have the best players, have the best map pool, have the best their main quality is sort of like a chemistry angle. It's the idea of these players, it just works, this lineup.
Yeah.
You notice those are lineups where all the players are from the same fucking country. They're not putting together like there's no team like Faze and Mousesports don't have that famous quality about them where there's such disparate parts. So if you're someone like SK, MIBR now rather, you want to get another Brazilian player. So when you consider there's a lot of failed players, I don't want to go around and get Steel again. I don't want to go and get Bolts back in the lineup. I think it's fair enough to try and take a gamble on somebody who really is unproven. But if the hype's there, if he really has some mad talent, especially when you add in the other factor to consider here is unlike some of those players I just mentioned who, if they join MIBR, they're just getting all the bitch rolls and they're never getting a good spot. when you've heard all the problems that Fur's having and the fact he's having to go for this surgery, you've got to start thinking, and then you've heard that Cold Zero's thinking about going elsewhere. You've got to start planning for who your next Cold Zero or Fur is. And if this guy really has talent, even if he doesn't do it right now, he can be molded into that potentially.
Yeah, the issue you've got with K Serato, it's interesting actually. He sort of looks a bit like a wonky Cold Zero as well, if you have a look at his face. You know, there's a lot of overlap. What's interesting is it's very hard to gauge where his fucking skill ceiling actually is, right? Because you know, the teams he's playing up against the low tier fucking NA teams. So it's like, you know, you watch him stomp a fucking mud hole in Envy, and you go, this kid's good. But then you have to remember it's Envy, right? And then you have he smashed Rogue, or he beat Ghost. You know, it's like you don't know how he's never played a game against a truly international caliber team.
True.
Ghost is as close as Ghost and E United are as close as it's come for him. So it's like, I trust Fallen's eye for talent or whatever, but again, I mean, you know, the step up is very, very profound. And you know, I'll be honest, I haven't seen a lot of him play. I think I've watched like 2 or 3 games, and in those games he's looked good. But there's a lot of hype around him considering, well, he just hasn't done anything yet.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Who is there in comparison? I mean, remember, the idea of Immortals as a feeder team doesn't work anymore. We've already fed on all the Immortals players, and whoever's left over, and they don't want to join, seemingly. So there's no one available from that team. Immortals and KNG, with the assist, have fucked up the rest of the Brazilian scene by now just remaking Immortals in a different org. So we've now got one less big org in the Brazilian scene. Well done there, mate. Your knock-on effect is unreal. It's like, that really is, like you said, Richard, the ripples on that one never end. I feel like they're going to keep going for years at this point.
No, it's unreal, isn't it? It's like that fucking movie, The Butterfly Effect. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up with no fucking legs or something mad, like, every fucking time. It's just insane what happened with the whole Immortals 100 Thieves thing. But yeah, I mean, like, to be fair, obviously, again, like, Cold Zero had no pedigree as well when he got picked up, and
put it this way, everyone loves fucking Zewu. He's only been on one LAN.
Yeah, but what a performance! You know? Yeah, what a performance!
No, but that's what I mean. If you really do have like the mad hype, there'll be people who take that gamble on you because they want the upside of it. You know, what if it works or whatever? And even though I will go ahead and say, obviously, by and large, those moves don't work. You know, those players don't turn out to be the god. Like, put it this way, if you really think that, anyone who believes that, like, deluded conspiracy that a lot of fans think that, like, either they're good enough to be a pro but didn't get the right breaks, or even worse, there's loads of people out there, but the bloody pro scene's so political that it's not. Nah, mate, if you are really like some simple or Nico motherfucker, here's the mad thing. You get fast-tracked to the top. Yeah. People go out of their way to skip the line for you and get you up there because, as we're talking about now, odds are, if I get you now while it's cheap, I'm getting the signing of fucking lifetime. So that's why I don't mind doing this move if they really have bought into it themselves. As long as they've like seen him play, think he has skill, that the people who know them have told him it's the right move. I think it's worth a gamble.
Yeah, I just hope, because like I say, it does look like Phelps is going to go ahead. I hope for K Serato's sake, it's not one of those where it's like the only time he's ever going to know what it's like to play with Fallen or anyone else is in that alternate universe, that what if, you know? Because that would be a tragedy just because some fucking Brazilian team
if you remember, it happened.
Wanted to hold out for 200k.
Remember, when KNG was kicked from Immortals, the Immortals were looking for I can't remember if it was Yell. There was one of them from that team that they're now, ironically, the players are fucking in. But if you remember, they were trying to make a massive sign of one of those players. And then and someone from Team 1 as well, I think. And the same thing happened.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't Yell, but I remember.
Were too high or something, you know, and you couldn't get these players. So, and by the way, by the fact that we don't remember their names now, tells you how great it was that they didn't get bought out. They just never fucking made it.
Yeah. People are saying, was it TRK?
He was the best player on that team. I'm not sure if it was him who was being signed, but there was someone who was one of those two teams, I believe.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, you know, it's something to watch. But yeah, it looks like we're going to get old MIBR. New MIBR is going to be old fucking SK. So that's going to be interesting. It's quite funny you brought up the point about saying, oh, sometimes you just have to go back in time and go to a point when everything was okay. Because Virtus.pro are another fucking organization that are looking backwards rather than forwards. And we sat here on the last episode just a few days ago and we said, look, man, there's a CIS super team out there that you can make. I'm telling you, there are motherfuckers at fucking Hellraisers and X-Gambit and just people out there on the periphery playing for teams like Forza. And you can go and you can build a CIS team, right? And instead, what do they want to fucking do? They want to go back, right? Bialy's so fucking done with CS. Like, I'm telling you, like, I think his passion for the game is gone. I don't know why, but like, seriously, think about Bialy 2015, 2016 even. Think about how good a player he was. And now, when he left Virtus.pro, the only team that he was rumored to be potentially joining was Mouse Sports, and that turned out to be absolute nonsense.
The team he loved so much, he left by just doing a tweet like "bye," just like walking out the room.
Like literally a one-word bye, right? Meanwhile, Snacks, right? Like fair play to Virtus.pro, by the way, because they got fucking $290,000 or whatever the fuck.
Oh, they're hustling
for
like
Snacks. Yeah. So to end up with him coming back the other way, and I guarantee you, they ain't paid $290,000 fucking dollars to welcome him back, and nowhere near it. So they're actually getting.
That's the sale of the century, isn't it? I mean, they got fucking Snacks. They fucking powdered his cheeks with rouge. They put on some nice fucking stiletto heels. They fucking cinched up his bosom. They trotted that little hussy out there to be like, oh, hello, Mouse Sports. I'd be so good if I was in your team. And then once the 290K was done, obviously he just unbuckles that fucking like whatever, I don't know, his fucking what's that thing, a gusset or whatever it's called, his flab just came out. Then he just then when he came, he goes, all right, I'm here now. Snacks is back. And then they go, fucking hell, you looked better in the pictures. Too late, catfished of course. And now they just buy him back for nothing, innit? Because no fucker will buy him. Mouse Sports was going, we'd like to announce that Snacks is benched and we will be taking offers. Just literally sat by a phone. Who's this? All right, wrong number. Just waiting for
everyone. I know. So, and on top of that, right? It's this. I can never pronounce his name. Toao. How the fuck do you say that? Tao?
Well, I believe his name stands for like
the one and only, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So he's already picked his shit name, hasn't he? So.
Yeah. So do I just call him the one? I don't know. Toao. Like how the fuck do you say that?
Tao.
Yeah, Tao. Like
Ciao.
Like.
Scoutsman. Ciao, mate. Ciao.
I just can't be fucking arsed with it. Like,
hey, you get fucking Snacks back in his team, Tommy. What the
you
fuck are you doing?
Come on, you fucking ref. Right, anyway, there's enough of that, right? But fucking and Mihu. So the team will be theoretically Bialy, Snacks, Tao, Mihu, and Snatchy. This is garbage. Like I can't deal. Like, is there some law that Virtus.pro has to have a Polish team? Like, did they sign a deal with Poland? Like the government to only employ Polish players? I'm lost for words, man. I don't understand it. They're not even historically a Polish organization. No. Why? Why do you? Oh, right, okay. You know all them problematic players that we got rid of because the team was failing. Well, now that the other players that were failing have, by the way, Pasha wasn't as bad as either of them, but he's gone. Well, now we'll get those players back and we'll add some more inexperienced players to the line.
Let's make sure that we retain. Let's get the services of the players that had no social media presence and are the least marketable.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, you know what? I'm just going to say this. It's not often, Richard, that I reply with analysis via the Bible, but I'm going to get biblical on your ass. So Proverbs 26:11
God help me.
says, as a dog returns to his vomit, so a fool repeats his folly.
That's true. It's actually true.
There's your thought for the day.
Thought for the day. I know it's a good thought, and it's very appropriate here. I mean, look, maybe okay. Look, so reading between the lines, I think there was a lot of tension because there was a hierarchy created in the team. There was a split in the team where when Bialy and Snacks joined, I always thought they believed one day it'll be our time. Like they were looking up at the Neos and the Tazes and the Pashas, and they thought like one day that'll be us. But of course, those old motherfuckers clung on for so long, right? And never gave them anything. I mean, we've all seen the leaked chat logs of like, Bialy saying, I wouldn't even be able to go to like my own fucking mother's funeral, but we have to miss practice days because someone wants to go to a wedding. It was very clear that the older players, the more seasoned players, got a lot of leeway, and the young bucks, who, by the way, they weren't young bucks by this point, but they were still getting treated like it, were still fucking shining shoes and everything else, right? So maybe there is a world where they can come back, and now it is your time. Like, you are the Neo and the Taz now. But neither of you are playing like it. That's the problem. So I don't know. This move just looks awful to me.
Like, here's the thing: if you ignore that Virtus.pro ever existed, and you're just asking me how do I make a good lineup of Polish players, this ain't a bad shout. There's some good fucking players in it. There's some talent here. Problem is, if I had to guess, say they make this lineup you just mentioned tomorrow, and it's a real team. I don't think that team's ever going to enter the top 5 in its entire history with that lineup. Like, it'll never happen. It'll never be that relevant in majors. Like, I could see it as a team that like scraps to maybe get top 10 because they've got some talent. But again, as we've seen in the Polish scene, it ain't about the talent always. Even if you have talent, you can't make use of it because, as I said, there is one lineup, one core ever that had success. You ain't got any of those players, homie. You managed to get 0.
Well, so there's another interesting thing that's going on that's like tangentially linked to it. I don't know if you saw this, but remember that I was telling you to go and apply for the Tyloo coaching job?
Yes.
Well, you missed it. You missed your window, mate, because apparently, according to sources, another report from DK, Tyloo, the Chinese team, are looking to add Kuben, of course, the Virtus.pro coach. Now, I think it's just for the major in Katowice. But, I mean, I don't know. Would Kuben be staying on to even coach? Like, we all know Kuben has the ties to the Neos, to the Pashas, like he's got that link there. To the Snackses and the Bialys, I'm not so sure he really does, and certainly not with the new guys. So, do Virtus.pro even want to keep him on? Would he still want to be there? I'm not saying this could be a permanent move, but it might be a way for him. Like, if Tyloo have a really good run in Katowice, it might be a really good way of him announcing, like, oh, well, I'm actually a competent coach. Pick me up to other teams. So just a couple of questions with this one. First of all, like, do you rate Kuben as a coach? Do you think this is a good move by Tyloo? And second of all, could this also be a signifier that Kuben is going to be leaving Virtus.pro permanently?
Like, as a coach, I have a hard time on the Kuben angle because, first of all, he had the same lineup and it was a very good lineup for a long, long time. And then when he finally did change players, I can't really say if I did give him marks for when they brought in different players to Virtus.pro that he seemed like he did a good job there. Again, can't all be the coach's fault, but he certainly didn't do a great job shaping these players, making them like Virtus.pro players, all that sort of shit. So that didn't help. Frankly, I've said it on past episodes. I actually thought he should have been fired from Virtus.pro a year or two ago. And that has nothing to do with him as a person. It's the angle of this. If you are a manager or a coach of a sports franchise that does not win and they have the resources to win, you should be fired. Like, you might still be an amazing coach, just not here. You need to go elsewhere. So I thought for that reason, after that many years, probably should have been fired. Like, I thought one of the things they should have done before they broke the original 5 up is give him a different coach, see if someone can sort of rejig the team, put someone in a different role, see something with fresh eyes that no one's seen. They never did that for whatever reason. So, okay. So my issue is this. Tyloo is obviously a much lower down team. And crucially, Tyloo is a team that is desperate for a good coach. They need someone from the West who's going to come, who's going to build in some of the fundamentals, and who's going to transport the current meta game over to that team. You know what? If I actually look at the Tyloo team, I think actually if you look at the kinds of players they have and the playing style they have, they got some fucking Virtus.pro in them, mate. They have that amazing, aggressive T side. I could see him being someone who could do something with that squad, especially because low expectations. No one's going to go crazy if he doesn't do anything. But it's a team with some skill in it, and it's a team where if you could even bring it a little bit up, that could actually be very legit in terms of placings because we already know they're an exciting team. So, and also crucially, I know people are thinking to themselves, Chinese players with a Polish guy. Remember, Ben Tet and that X-Group speak fucking English, mate. Like, Ben Tet, you can hold a whole conversation with him. If anything, he's going to be right there for Kuben to speak to. So I think it's a solid move for both parties. Because by the way, I doubt many other teams out there outside of Poland give a fuck about Kuben. Everyone's forgotten about him, quite frankly. No one ever. That's why he never used to get people calling for him to be fired. Because who even remembers he does anything, right? Everyone just knows he's the coach behind Virtus.pro.
There was definitely an air about it where it was like it looked like like a move based on cronyism, because he was friends with the players from way back when, and I don't know how much work he actually did in terms of prepping them and coming up with tactics and everything else.
Well, I can give you an angle on that if you want, which is
I'm curious, honestly.
In 1.6, the main leader of the team was Taz early on, and then in the latter years, they shifted it to Kuben. And as far as I know, one of the reasons you shift it to Kuben is because he was one of the most amicable members of the team. So you don't get the arguments that you get if Taz is the leader, and you don't get the arguments if Neo's like, I want to take over for this event, So the key thing is, to me, when they brought him into Virtus.pro, it's like, right, now we've got someone where it doesn't have to just constantly swap between Taz and Neo. We have someone who can sort of be the buffer between the two and who can facilitate the two, and it keeps you going for a while. So in a way, I guess what I'm saying there is there might have been some cronyism, but also it might have even had a logic to it, like an aspect outside of just the game that ego-wise works for us in that sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, he's definitely an amicable guy. I've known Kuben a long time, like never seen him get mad. In fact, the last time I saw him showing anything that was emotion was when I tweeted out that fucking double face palm he was doing while he was watching fucking Virtus.pro get chewed up at the fucking major or whatever. But yeah, and just more misery for Virtus.pro. Like they were powering through with this whole lineup, like meeting all their obligations. And I think today they had to play for the WESG 2018 World Finals, and they lost to AGO 2-0. So it's like, it's just a nightmare. It's like when you pull the plug as well, by the way, actually do it. Like, don't have them come out and say, oh, we'll still play a few games here because we have to, Fucking, it's been pretty terrible. Right, so there was another big story. How are we doing for time, by the way, Sam? How far?
We are about an hour and 10 in, I'd say.
All right, music. So, yeah, ESL have taken a big step towards what we've been crying out for a long, long time with their league structure. Now, we did get a tweet coming out where it was like, Face It finally said, yeah, we're gonna talk with ESL and we're gonna work out a way to fix the calendar. Well, one of the things I think, one of the pet peeves we've all had about fucking Counter-Strike is that online Counter-Strike is it's become meaningless. It's become a farce. There's so much of it. And the fans don't really care about it. And the players don't really care about it. And people like me and you, honestly, we don't really care about it. It's something that I will watch if it's on. But honestly, like in terms of like when I factor it into like my punditry, very rarely ever talk about anything that's happened online. It's like it just doesn't matter. Not when you're talking about elite level teams.
I actually found years ago, I've mentioned this in the past, I actually found that when I literally ignored online completely, it had no impact on my actual ability to analyze an event. As in, the people I knew who were following it, they were like my canaries in the coal mine, Some of the other casters, for example, who have to work on Pro League, they would be using things that had happened in Pro League to tell me that, like, this team's going to be so sick, or they're on the rise, this squad. And I'm not joking. That information ended up fucking them the majority of the time. Like every time they tried to transfer it offline, it almost never worked. So I actually found that, if anything, unless you consider it a completely different domain and don't let the information go across, if anything, it's a distraction from what LAN players because it's so different.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. And that's what it is unrecognizable. And, like pro players get frustrated with it as well. Tactically, it's different. Pace-wise, it's different. Players just do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do. It's definitely something that we needed to cut down on. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have online CS, but I think online CS should be a way, first of all, to showcase tier 2 teams and let them have some shine and some streams, while also allowing, tournament organizers to hit their sponsorship organization. So sponsorship deliverables. So they're still getting the content out there. They're still hitting their deliverable hours. That's the two primary reasons for online CS to exist. This where you have like the very best teams in the world play each other online 3 days before they play each other offline at a big event, and you want me to get hyped about it? That's a system that's been really strangling the enthusiasm out of Counter-Strike for a while. So I was very happy to see this announcement by ESL, where basically the ESL Pro League, as we know it, isn't an online league anymore. It's going to be offline. They've got a format graphic. If you want to bring it up, Sam, it's on the front page of HLTV. But basically, they're going to do it where it's divided up into regions. And you're going to have finalists from America, finalists from the America, and finalists from Asia, and they're all going to come together. All of the group stage games, everything are going to be played at studios. I think the one
except
in
for
the UK,
Asia. That's the only one.
apart from the Asia League, where obviously they don't have the infrastructure yet to be able to do that. So it looks like a really good format, and it's a move. I'm interested to know how ESL are bankrolling this, honestly.
Yep, that was the first thing I said in one of the main points. My main points in the video I just did on this, which I released today, that was one of my main ones.
Yeah, I haven't had time to watch it yet.
No, it only came out a couple hours before this. One of my main points is, like, I speculated either this means that ESL is basically trying to, like everyone else in esports, stake more of a claim to their little piece of turf, and in doing so, they're willing to let the margins go to shit. Because, you know, if you do this, good luck ECS responding to this. You're fucking shit out of luck. Even if you say, well, we're doing it online as well, now you just look like you copied. And quite frankly, I don't think you will. I think you'll just stay online and you'll be the inferior league. So ESL, without even having to do exclusivity, have put themselves in the fucking catbird seat. You're the ones out of place. Because, by the way, like, unfortunately, I couldn't find any way to craft this into any content. But I actually did get some inside information about a month and a half ago that basically behind the scenes there was sort of a war going on over the online leagues. Like, teams wanted to leave, and then teams were deciding, like, well, which one would we leave? And so as a result, the leagues themselves were having to sort of initially, like, separately go to teams and be like, what if we gave this? What if we did this? What if we did this instead? Because they didn't want to be the one that got left. And then eventually there was some interplay between the two, as referenced by your tweet there. It's just unfortunate I didn't get any kind of way I thought I could use it for it. Like, it wasn't substantial enough that I went public with it. I thought, I'll see where this goes. But this is something that's been brewing for a while. I do find it very suspicious, I'll say this, that if you go back on my Twitter timeline, I believe we're talking 2 weeks ago, JW out of nowhere, Rops and JW had this tweet chain where they were sort of saying, like, something should be done about online CS. And I got involved in it, right? And very quickly, JW suggested literally this type of a system. Like, why not an E-League type system where you play your group online and then you could, it's like, and then that's just literally come out. Like, that's one of those ones where I wonder if I was being fucking played there, Rich, and I was part of it.
Almost certainly. I mean, because look, I think this has been done with talks from the Players Association as well, right? I mean, it would make sense that you would loop the players in from this, in for this type of discussion. Obviously, WISA are involved. People seem to have forgotten about them. They're still around, and all of their teams and the Players Association within WISA, as well as the external Players Association, the one that Scoot.
Well, if you saw in the post itself, one of the main quotes was from Pietro Fringuelli, that guy who obviously in the past was like the WISA chairman or some shit, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely right. So it's like it's interesting. I think. So what I heard behind the scenes, right? I'm trying to think of how to frame it without being needlessly inflammatory. But what I heard was that teams, there were some teams. Some teams obviously have a partnership with ECS. So for those that don't know, ECS was set up as an offshoot company from Face It in partnership of the teams that play within ECS. That's why they were able to offer equity. And then I heard that some teams wanted to up that and start getting some more payouts and create a league very much like this, like an E-League type thing, and wanted a bit more money and clout to stay in. I also heard that, you know, maybe the WISA teams were being leveraged a little bit to commit to this exclusively. So the E word was definitely on the table again. and I've said it before. I think I was vehemently against exclusivity in 2015. It would have killed our scene stone dead. Now, I think having one de facto league where all the best teams play, and they don't necessarily, they still have the lands, but I'm talking about a league. I don't think that's a bad idea. I think that actually helps preserve the integrity of Counter-Strike and the longevity of Counter-Strike. Because I think what we've got at the moment is, even if this, like, let's say ECS is the online league and it's great and all the top teams are in it, and then this is the offline league and it's great and all the top teams are in it, and then you have E-League and that's great and on TV and all the top teams are in it. We're not necessarily addressing the problem of oversaturation with these resolutions. It's like you actually do sort of need either the teams to break up and you only have these guys play in ECS, these guys play in EPL, and maybe they meet in some like unifying cup or tournament, right? Or they just never play each other until the open land circuit. But yeah, I think while I'm excited about this, I don't know if it addresses the problem of oversaturation.
I have also a concern as well, which goes back to the angle of how did ESL bankroll this? Because one of the reasons I told a lot of people there will never be offline component to a league like this, and we will never cut down league games, is because it was one of the only areas in the entire scene that everyone except players agreed made sense financially. So obviously it makes sense to ESL to have tournaments that you don't have to have in a location with a venue and fly people to. They play them online and you get tons of hours of footage. Obviously, it makes great sense to an org to have X amount of guaranteed games, even if you finish last place, that you can sell to a sponsor. I'm going to be playing Faze Clan and Astralis and North and all these, these are all great things for those people. So the idea that in a scene where people are already really squeezed to a tournament organizers, that's why my suspicion on this one is this is sort of the power move by ESL, which is like, we'll give something up now in the off chance that we can win in the long run. Like, we'll be the only league in 2 years or something,
Well, so there's a lot going on behind the scenes, right? Like, so there's been some real underreported stories that I think are interesting, looking at the business perspective. And I wonder if it's linked to this now, thinking about all the disparate parts. So obviously we all saw Intel committing a lot of money to ESL's partnership over another 3 years. I think it was like they re-upped for another 100 mil, which is great. But one of the things that didn't get talked about quite so much was they had a new director brought onto the board at ESL, and it's a guy called Thomas Schmidt. Now, Thomas Schmidt is a guy who has handled the sale of the UEFA Champions League for 10 years. He's very much entrenched with UEFA, and there's been lots of talk about a UEFA partnership, an ESL partnership, a kind of broadcasting thing going on. And I think that basically where they're going to make the money, how they're going to basically recoup the costs. I think they go in the hole and then they look to sell it. They sell the broadcasting rights globally in a way that hasn't been done before, because E-League was syndicated. Sure, this is different. This is like when you sell the Champions League, you're getting a lot of money for that. If you start selling the rights to EPL, this offline league, it's a lot more desirable than just syndicating fucking online games. And it makes me wonder if that's the angle here, because they've been gearing this up. This happened, the Thomas Schmidt move happened in October, and there was some other talks going on around UEFA and everything, and marketing and media rights and stuff prior to that I was privy to and aware of. So it seems to me that what they're going to do is they're trying to make the Champions League of Counter-Strike. But that's the model in a lot of ways, right? You've got your regions coming in, teams coming in, they work their way through. All the people who go to the last stages are champions in their own respect. And then they're going to try and sell the rights, I think, to TV companies globally. I don't know if that tickles your fancy particularly.
I mean, here's the thing. That's kind of one of the things I was alluding to. I agree. Basically, this is like, it's not sound like a far-fetched analogy, but I'll give you one, okay? When I was a boy, one of the bus companies in the town where I lived actually did what now would probably be illegal, I would guess. I think they probably changed the law. They basically made it so that like the price of the bus ticket was like less than you actually needed to make a profit from the bus ticket. And they did this, as you'd expect for anyone who knows how these business practices work, to drive all the other bus companies out. And once enough were out, guess what? Not only did they make the bus ticket cost money, but they could make it cost more than a bus ticket used to cost because they now have the whole fucking scene by the neck. So in that scenario, it's quite logical as to how the gamble play now could absolutely be worth it. Because at the moment, we've not only got the two leagues as they are, but for all you know, if you stay as an online league and you don't want to put too much money in because it's just an online league, you're just lucky no one ever came along and said, fuck it, I've got 100 million of VC money. I had time to make my Morons League, which doesn't have to make any money for 10 years. And then all of a sudden you're competing against them. And so I could definitely see it being worth the gamble because it's what everyone is doing in esports right now. It's not about making money. It's trying to make more money in 10 years from now. So my only downside for it, as far as I can see, like the one area I worry about is this is already going to play so badly into the angle of players, pro players I'm talking about, and fans who already think like that ESL was like cheaping out on the league and like, why didn't you just pay more money at the beginning? It's like, you don't even understand the concept of a ledger, you daft cunts. You're the people who, if you took the 30 million into Cloud9, you really would buy fucking Faker and Simple to the team, even if it made no sense.
I was just going to say, they'd give 20 mil of that to fucking Skadoodle, right?
You know what I mean? Like that's the sort of like the problem is anytime you get into the business angle, you either have to know the like principles of the person running, or you need to know their metrics. And sadly, this is probably the saddest thing. I agree with you, by the way, on it being underreported. For everyone who's a journalist, right? I'll say this in this context. I've never tried to be an investigative journalist. It's not something I've ever tried to do. I do the other aspects of journalism. You don't do as much investigative journalism in the last few years because you're working with E-League. You're doing it on the side. But the amount of investigative journalists in esports who can't stop patting themselves on the back for how sick they are, but all they report is roster moves. The easiest information to get in the scene, not least because when you get good enough, half of them fucking just come to you and tell you the move. Now, I tell you what, if you want to write an amazing story right now, try and find out how much revenue a team makes and then how much profit they make from that. Find out how much a tournament organizer actually loses on a massive LAN tournament. These are like the equivalent of our Pulitzer Prize winning stories where even if everyone else wouldn't give you the credit, people like me and Richard would give you the plaudits. It's like, you fucking nailed it. Like, that's real shit that I want to know about because at the moment it's incredibly pertinent to the scene. And even behind the scenes, so little of that information is known. And even between orgs, there's so much like subterfuge and lying and pretending things are great or things are great and you're downplaying it. Like there's so much fuckery in the scene at the moment, which is why I don't blame these outside companies who try to do due diligence and you can't. Who the fuck's going to tell you it, right?
Yeah. You're right. I've said this for a while. Like the only reason I've even like kept my fucking hand in just a little bit on the reporting side of things is, outside of like one or two names, I do despair about the kind of stories that would get written. And right now, I saw you replying in some fucking Twitter chain to some business dude, some business reporter that I know, Ben Fisher, I want to say,
yes.
Who was
said it wasn't a bubble in esports.
Yeah, said that it went back and forth, kind of was writing about how there's going to be a market correction. Which sounds like a bubble bursting.
I've got a good one for you here, Rich.
Yeah, go on.
Here was the angle he said that, because I asked him by his definition, and I did exactly what, if you notice, is one of my like tools that no one else seems to apply. So if someone gives me 500 reasons why Skadoodle should stay, the obvious question is, well, what could he ever do that would make him get kicked? And as you've noticed with people like Skadoodle, there was no answer. It was proven by the end he could not be kicked for any reason. So same scenario with the Ben guy. Don't tell me it's not a bubble. Go ahead and tell me what criteria you would make it a bubble. Now, his answer, he thought he answered well. I almost laughed myself to sleep with what he answered. See if you can find his answer and read it. Yeah, it should be pretty soon up because you're going to be amazed by it. Yeah, it shouldn't be very long ago. It'll be some time recent.
Yeah, let me find it. I think I've got you here. So here you go. What would define a bubble according to your metrics? And he says, if the market is consistently pricing assets far beyond their intrinsic value, that's a bubble. Esports orgs are a private market with reasonable differences in opinion over how much intrinsic value is there. I presume he means there is. So a bright line definition is hard. I'm not using one here. I think most people reserve the word bubble for when there is little or no intrinsic value, which leads to catastrophic losses when it pops. There clearly is some real value in Org's brand's fan base current cash flow, so I'm hesitant to use it here.
Now, you know what blows my mind about that, Richard?
Yeah, well,
This
go
just
on.
shows
There's
how
a few
different,
things, I imagine.
This shows you how different the business world is to the esports world. I couldn't believe that those sentences all came one after another. Like, so it's a bubble if it's something that doesn't have like intrinsic value. Well, every single thing you now see in esports had like 1/10 of the value like 2 or 3 years ago. Explain to me where the intrinsic value is. It doesn't have intrinsic value. Then beyond that, there's the idea of like, if it was a bubble and it was to burst, then it would have catastrophic. It would kill the whole scene very dead in certain games overnight. You saw Heroes of the Storm just fucking shut the game down. They just went and got the big thing, went, and all of a sudden the jukebox went off and the music stopped playing. And they just said, please leave the venue now. It's like, that's it. So the idea that he thinks there's intrinsic value, explain this to me. If these things in esports aren't overvalued and there's intrinsic value, how can people be valuating a team at $200 million that they themselves, when they're lying, claim has a $70 million revenue, not profit, revenue? Yeah. Those numbers don't add up whatsoever. That is like the definition of some fucking bullshit.
I like, for me, I've said this for a while. I think like we look, there's some valuations that I don't have a problem with at all. And there's some valuations that make no sense to me whatsoever. And with all my years of experience in esports, I cannot figure out how you arrive at those numbers. So let's come up with an example. I'm trying to think. Okay, let's just it's comparing apples and oranges, but hear me out. So let's say, for example, when we were talking about like Nico being transferred to an organization, and it was like $250,000 was the outlay with the potential for it to kick up to $500,000. That might seem a crazy valuation. I personally think it's worth it. I can see a way that you can recoup the money just by having Nico associated in your organization in several ways. I can see you getting endorsement deals off the back of having him. I can see you winning money, and if you cream 10% off, like some organizations do, off winnings, you can do it that way. I can see you selling
you can even
merchandise.
argue you'll get more players to join the team. It even has sort of implied value, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of arguments you can make about that move being worth the outlay, even if it looks like you're paying over the market odds. Now, if you compare 60 million for an Overwatch League franchise, you go, okay, well,
how about an episode? I'll give you a way to tie it in, Rich. So for anyone who doesn't Overwatch, in case they get confused, here's a great one. We already did it this episode. 200K for Keserato. Unproven player, never done anything, never been to a tier 1 LAN, never like that's the problem there. Is even if Nico or the top player was like valued, because the same thing with Simple, you know, if you could buy Simple, you would. The point is, where's the scale when Keserato is 200K? That's where you can see things are inflated, right?
Yeah, but also as well, the reason things get inflated is because the people, it's like the people who knew Bitcoin was a load of shit. But like, you know, on the way up, they were like, fuck, I love the technology, mate. It's fucking great, right? You hit that $18,000 peak, you think sky's the limit. You start even referring to yourself as a millionaire. You start telling everybody. As soon as you start to see it dip and you go, fucking hell, we're down to 15K. You start looking at the number that gets wiped out and you think, fuck it, I better get mine. Because if I don't, I could be the asshole that's left like with nothing. And indeed, like think about it from the player perspective at Furia. You know, if I don't sell Keserato to MIBR, who else is ever going to come a calling that can afford $200,000? I got to roll the dice and try and get mine. And you see it all the time. People selling shit or trying to get money or lying to investors. It's because these people, for all they preach the esports evangelical, they're not long term. They don't believe. They're not long-term believers.
Even though, from what I've seen, that Ben Fisher seems like a very reasonable guy. Actually,
he is. I've had numerous conversations.
Yeah. I actually knew about him before from when he's done like reporting on the NBA and stuff. You know, even so, like I'll put some of it at his feet and say I think he's just not as experienced about the actual esports industry, and so he's been a bit naive. But I'll also say this. If you know what his account is about on Twitter and the work he's currently doing, it benefits him nothing to say esports is a bubble and going to pop.
Of course it doesn't.
It's like that classic quote, you know, that like anytime it sort of like benefits a man's bottom line to believe one thing, you will have a very hard time convincing him of the other.
If you ever want to see an example about that, right? Like, you know, and again, someone who comes late to the party and then peddles themselves as a fucking authority. Ryan Morrison's Twitter feed is the fucking. It's just the worst. It's just the worst for that. Right? He's the expert on everything. The only bad things that happen in esports, according to his Twitter feed, is the shit when players didn't go to him and didn't sign up to his agency or didn't go get his everything. Like literally everything he says is going, listen, guys, do you want to fucking, there's some terrible things happening in esports right now. I can't name names and I can't call them out, but will you bloody get a lawyer and read contracts or sign up to an agency who can represent your interests? Oh, hang on, aren't you both of those things? Bloody coincidence that, like.
No,
meanwhile,
not just me or my mate.
Yeah, me or my mate who works for me. Meanwhile, every other tweet about esports is the most rose-tinted bullshit going, yep, it's brilliant, this, isn't it? All this VC money coming in. Sky's the limit for fuck you asset-flipping cunts. It's so transparent now, by the way, what you're doing. You used car salesman smile motherfuckers. And I have to like every time you open the door to these cunts, they just let their greed and fucking hubris just come spilling out, and they just fucking pretend that it's so bad.
Because that's the angle that I've never got, right? The reason why people have to spin it with their cognitive dissonance, Rich, that like me and you just must hate esports or you were jealous or something, is because that's the angle that they don't understand. Is like, I really want esports to do really well, and I want CSGO to be a massive game and to be worth 5 times what it is. But I don't if it's all full of shit and it could actually kill the entire scene dead. So the difference is I always retain a level of skepticism, especially as in cases like this. The Bitcoin analogy is the perfect one. There really is no logical reason why this thing will ever make money, because it doesn't right now. Like, the money it makes is so pitiful. And in fact, the logic is so fucked that every time it makes money, that just like 10x increases the investment. So how do you ever make the fucking money back? Think about it.
But again, like, look at the people that constantly talk about how all of this stuff's good and it's not a bubble and it's sustainable and it's going to work, it's all going to last forever. And then you look at where they're getting their money from and what they do. Like, again, to keep on the crypto analogy, if you were a guy who would literally sold your fucking house and put it all into crypto, well, I can't ever trust your opinion on the future of the crypto market, can I? Because you absolutely need it to succeed, because you've fucking gone all in. You pushed all your chips into the middle of the fucking table, and now somehow, because you're an influential figure, you get to drive the conversation. That's unbelievably dangerous. That's how fucking crashes do occur, because the people who've got everything invested into it are driving the conversation and fooling more and more people.
That's why the analogy is always the pyramid scheme, because the whole point is, in the pyramid scheme, the desperation is like, fuck, well, if I get these people in, that secures my stake, so I'm out again. It's like you're like some fucking little devil motherfucker trying to trick guys to go to hell. And
that's the other thing. And they don't hold, they don't hodl, they don't fucking stay in. The first big offer they get, where they make the big profit, they flip it. They go they go to their private island, and they never talk about esports again. And I see these people. I know who they are. I know who they are, because they tweet too much about how they love esports. I'm a lifer. I've been in this thing fucking how long? I fucking don't love esports. It's got problems. It's stressful. It's an industry that has way more problems to solve than regular sports. And we all know how imperfect fucking regular sports is. And saying it's all fucking sunshine and fucking rainbows, and now that the money's coming in, it's so transparent that you are just trying to get value for your own investments and then get the fuck out. And it's cunts like me who have to stick around for another 10 years fixing everything up. Well, it's bullshit. It's so much bullshit. But back to these valuation things that we're talking about, and then I've got another story, and then we'll start winding the show down. But it's like these valuations aren't genuine right now, because again, the other factor that we haven't even talked about is, remember when Chelsea got bought by Roman Abramovich, and Chelsea said, right, well, we want to buy some players now and improve our team. And if you go to the team and you go, oh yeah, I'd really like to buy your top striker. And they go, oh, sure, yeah. He's worth about 10 million. Oh, sorry, who was calling again? You go, Chelsea. Oh, you got that Moneybags Russian owner, dear. Yeah, he's 40 mil, actually, mate. And prices get inflated because people know these VC people, first of all, have the fucking money to burn. And second of all, don't even know what they're buying or what the valuation should be. There are so many people literally just pumping it up right now, like saying, "Oh, my org is worth $200,000." Why?
On
You
that
don't even have any
exact
revenue stream.
angle, there's one of the big problems I have with CS:GO valuations at the moment. Is this? There's an element to them that is really fucked up, which is it's not business. Like if I'm selling the Serato guy, there's two angles I want it because I know he wants to leave, right? Obviously, who wouldn't want to go to MIBR if you present? It's totally understandable.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
yeah.
So there's two scenarios that are ideal for me. One, I sell him for a good amount, so I get compensated for it, and I can use that money to do things with my own org, or to buy other players, or you know what, look for the next Serato and flip him if you want to be that kind of org. Or I want to keep him in the team so he's happy, right? Well, if it's MIBR or bust, I can't do either. That's why I have to be out on Twitter showing my ass. Like, how do I do it? In that scenario, if they say, if I go, price is 250K for him, then here's MIBR, give you 200. Yes, because what can I say? No, 300. Better than nothing, isn't it? Like in that scenario, 200 is fucking amazing compared to 250, compared to nothing. But that isn't the way it works. It's either 200K or nothing.
Yeah, but this exactly that, right? Like, I mean,
there's no other bidder. Who the fuck am I bidding against?
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's like
that's what's supposed to drive the price up. Is we've got two people bidding.
But I understand.
They don't have an auction. We're selling this thing here, and we'll start at 100 million. Sold to no one.
It's so ridiculous. But again, it comes back to that thing. People just want to get theirs. This guy has somehow looked into signing a young player who is good enough for a top team to want to buy. So he has thought this is the fucking this can fund the org. I mean, let's say he's one of the honest team owners. Let's say he's not going to pocket some of the money. Let's say he's not going to say, "Well, I'm entitled to some of this, aren't I? Because I've been funding this org, and I'm going to." Let's say he wants to completely reinvest and build Furia up into something bigger. Well, he's looking at $200,000 as like, this can fund the organization for a year, 2 years, no problem. But it's like you say, you got to be realistic in your bid. As soon as you go, well, I'm thinking 200,000, and MIBR go, nah. Like, you got to come down a little bit. You have to come down a little bit, because what's the alternative? Like, now Serato is just going to rot away on that team, and eventually he's not going to want to re-sign. He's going to be exploring
his options anyway. So what for you?
Yeah, exactly. It's just a missed opportunity. Honestly, I think there are a lot of fucking people who wouldn't even get through an episode of fucking Dragon's Den that are trying to run esports organizations.
Like, that is actually, someone suggested this ages ago. It's been suggested many times on Twitter. I would actually pay to watch a real esports Dragon's Den where these cunts come in who want to like make a team or something, and then it's obviously got to be like me, you, Scoots. So it'd have to be Scoots, let's be real, just for his fucking infamous catchphrase that he would have on the show.
Exactly. Out my industry.
Well, maybe that's the way the whole show works. Instead of saying I'm out, we just say get the fuck out of my industry.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good.
And then obviously we'd have to have like one guy on there who's not a complete. Maybe have like Bryce Blum or something who goes, "Well, I like your offer and I got a lot of spunk. I'll consider it, And I go, "You can fucking drown in spunk. Get the fuck out of my industry."
Pull the trap door straight into a pool of spunk.
Yeah.
Exactly. Why is the word spunk having a terrible comeback?
Exactly.
At the end of this podcast.
He's ended up in some sort of mad. I can't even remember which Bond film it was where you had that elevator where like the floor went out and you went into the tiger shark thing. Just that, but a tank of spunk. There's not even anything in there. You just die.
I'm not gonna lie,
too gooey to swim out of it, like quicksand.
Spunk is the fucking worst word for jizz.
It's the best.
No, it's no. I'm never.
Because it means when all these Americans unintentionally go, "She has a lot of spunk." That girl,
yeah,
I bet she fucking does. Where's she on Twitch?
Jesus Christ. That might be the timestamp, right?
Timestamp that.
Yeah.
Just timestamp it and record yourself going "Azubu" over the top, and then just put it back in the mod. It's really funny, yeah. No, they're not going to fuck us up. We're not on Azubu right now. Well, until we get that Facebook ESL style deal next year, and then we'll be appearing exclusively on Azubu.
When Azubu relaunched for the third time. So there was just one other story because I thought the show's running a little bit short, but I do want to wrap it up anyway. Done two shows in 3 days. There was another report from DK about a change in Ghost Gaming. Thought it might be a nice way to end the show. Yeah, well, it's a fucking weird one for me, mate, because the move that's being touted, apparently Sabrosa, who has definitely never cheated, is going to step down from Ghost Gaming, and Freakazoid is going to replace him in the lineup. So really fucking strange, this one, because last time we talked about Ghost Gaming, I even said, I'm sure you remember, brought up the point saying Sabrosa's been legit at LAN. I mean, he's been posting very good numbers. I'm not saying he's the same player that some of the crazy shit we saw, but makes you think, doesn't it, about how some players have these witch hunts aimed at them. I'm not saying it's a witch hunt.
No.
But you know what I mean.
It just makes you realise, just go straight. Do it legit.
You're
not going to be that crazy player you wanted to be. We all wanted to be the Guardian Flick. Sometimes you just got to be that Olofmeister with the 32 kills no one notices,
Yeah, exactly. But he was playing pretty well. And then it's like, okay, well, there's definitely some talent percolating in that tier 2 in NA. I'm thinking there's players at United and stuff like that. Well, no, it's going to be Freakazoid, apparently, moving from fucking Swole Patrol, coming in for Sabrosa. It just seems such a strange move to me, this. Not because I don't like Freak as a player, or don't think he has his attributes that he brings to the team. But, I mean, first of all, primarily, he was always the motivator, the enforcer, if you will, going way back to Cloud9. It was definitely more about personality than skills. He was one of those guys who would stop you tilting, very vocal, would talk a lot. It was never really about him dropping mad frags or being the best player. I
can't lie as well. If you just look at that old Cloud9 team he was on, it does just look like some sort of 80s movie, and Sean Gares is the main villain, and when he gets you kicked out, he goes nah, I ain't gonna hurt you, man. This guy's gonna hurt you. And they're Freakazoid fucking wrecks you, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
Sean Gares over there with a nail file. Fucking
just watching. But
commence the violence.
But it's such a fucking scale down in terms of firepower. And I've been watching, Swole Patrol and the run they've had, and how Freaks was playing. I watched all that drama unfold. Where I couldn't believe that. By the way, that drama.
His own brother betrayed him. That was pretty wild. That was some
no. But I mean, so his brother leaves the team. And obviously, Freakazoid fucking, goes on stream, very raw and earnest about it all, and says that he's feels betrayed and he feels let down. He might be quitting the game and all that. So the Freakazoid fans, to appease Freakazoid, went and were going to Freak's brother. I'll fucking kill you, Bubsy! I'll fucking kill you! He's still his brother, you daft cunt. It's I know, you as a fan are never going to be more important to him than his old brother, you mad bastard.
What do they think this is? Some sort of fucked up real life Punch and Judy show? Boo, kill him, boo. It's a same cunt with both hands in him.
Ryan at the fuck,
No, he's just exposed Punch and Judy, man.
I'm sorry.
I can't leave that in.
Right, but fucking Ryan had to fucking put a tweet out saying, "Listen, guys, me and my brother have had our differences over this roster move, but I would be devastated if anyone was to hurt him." It's well, obviously, why are you having to explain that? What kind of fucking idiots are in this fucking scene? Get me out, man! It's getting worse. Everyone's mental. Right, anyway, so what do you think of this move?
People might be surprised. I actually like this move because here's the thing. If you look at the players, I've mentioned this every time I mention Ghost Gaming, but unfortunately you can never get the elephant out of the room that Steel cannot go to majors. So it has to be players who either haven't made it yet, so it's worth the gamble, or are to some degree washed up and probably never will play for the Cloud9's Team Liquids of the world again. Freakazoid perfectly fits into that. So when you consider the people available, there are very few players that have real world CSGO experience from the last few years. We're not talking some old ass player from fucking 10 years ago. Legit people who have real experience in the CSGO scene. Freakazoid's one of the few that does. Plus, you think about him as a leader. If he's going to play for a tactical team, I've said this before, he's like an in-game leader's dream because he's a guy who's just going to do exactly what you want. If you want him to be the entry fragger and run through a fucking brick wall, he's not going to complain. Again, if anything, he's going to pump up other people in the team. One of the things I will say about Steel is, as great as he is as a tactician, he has that problem himself where, you know what, his personality, he's a bit whiny. You know, he's not the sort of guy who's going to be like a great motivator, who's going to give the great speech. You know, if anything, he's going to be the guy who's going to say, listen, we practice these things, let's do them this way, do it right next time. You know, it's more that kind of thing. So I could see Freak being a good offset to him in that sense of balancing out sort of the emotional side of the team. So I think, aside from the fact that he's not a super duper amazing player, I think he could fit his role well. He could do a lot. And again, since I know it's a tactical team and Steele runs the team, I think it's the right type of player for Steele. I think it's exactly the sort of person I'd want to give him, bearing in mind we've got a limited field of players we can pick from.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, for me, I just thought Sabrosa, for all of his, transgressions or whatever, I always thought like he was pretty integral to this team, and bizarrely, kind of big shoes to fill in my opinion for Freak. So I'm gonna watch that move with interest. We got a couple of questions. Detlef Insomniac asks, have we ever come across any Georgian players in esports? And I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure I knew a Georgian, but I might have been a Macedonian actually in Source. But not many Georgians. You?
No. The only time I ever even hear about Georgia is when Russia's about to fuck them up or something. That's about it. I don't know anything about Georgia in CS.
Well, it's different for me as a Newcastle fan because we had Timuri Ketsbaya.
Oh, fair enough.
So
okay. That's how far Newcastle fucking felt that they were getting players from Georgia, mate. Holy.
He was fucking sick, mate.
Yeah, but they invented football in England. They're not even getting English players anymore. Fuck you know.
Mate, Ketsbaya was a good old lad. You go watch the video of him.
Well, ask how good he is at CS. Maybe we've fucking put two and two together. He never played CS Assault. There you go. His name's Tetspire. There you go. There we go. That's who it is. Yeah, anyway, thanks for the $100. Maybe think of a better question.
Yeah, what a cunt. Yeah.
You fucking off the people who pay the show.
I know.
Cheers for that.
First, you know.
Fucking hell. Right, and then the other question is from Jerky's Minion. All the people who complain about not making the LAN event now from ESL Pro League, do they have any excuse next season if they don't go because it will be on LAN?
No. I mean, what excuse would you have, right?
Yeah. I was going to say...
on LAN,
yeah, it did feel like a pretty short answer for that one as well. I didn't even know, were people complaining about it?
No, I'm one of the people who complains. He means, like, for example, so at the last EPL finals, Faze wasn't there because they didn't finish in the top 6. So obviously I would complain about that. Faze is one of the best teams in the world. Why the fuck do I want to see like North there instead of Faze? So in that scenario, the excuse Faze could give is like, well, it was online, wasn't it? And I'd even have to agree with him. Yeah, it is online. Who gives a fuck, right?
Right. I see what he says.
Whereas, now it's a LAN final. Like, no, you have no excuse if you don't get out your group, right? It's the same as being E-League. You didn't make it out the group. Fuck off.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, exactly. I think that's how it has to be, man. So yeah, like I agree. I think I didn't see a lot of people whining about it, honestly, online. Just the usual suspects. I'm trying to think of like any notable player who complained about like.
Here's the thing I will say. Nowadays, players
bullshit
because they've been through the ringer enough times. Even people like I say, they don't tend to complain because they're like, well, what option is there? Like, no one ever even conceived we could have these leagues offline. So you just thought online players just the world that we're in, right?
Yeah. By the way, I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's got nothing to do with the show. I just want to show it and then we'll wrap up. But I just saw this. It made me laugh. It reminded me of Zeus for some reason. So you can just have a look in the chat. I don't know if you want to play it, Sam. Right, it was some guy who went and got a fucking Angelina Jolie as Tomb Raider tattoo. Yeah. And he does like a big reveal.
Yeah.
Where they pull just that have a look at this.
Hang on.
It's the mouth. It's the lips, isn't it?
But he does look a bit like Zeus as well. And I can picture Zeus getting a shit tattoo.
No, but look at the lips though.
Look at the lips.
Who's this? The owner of fucking Splice?
Right, let's give it a 3, 2, 1. Right, ready?
I have to say
3, 2, 1, go.
It's just his reaction as well, like because he's
covered in shaving cream for no reason.
Yeah, because he's holding the picture up as well.
The lips are outrageous.
I know. It's like the guy could do everything but lips, and then this guy's asking to do Angelina Jolie with
no
collagen
lips.
injected into her lips. Like, of all the people you don't want to go for, don't go for Angelina Jolie for fuck's sake.
Oh, classic banter. Right then. All that remains to do is thank our sponsors at the channel, Rivalry.gg. Head over to rivalry.gg/RLS, and you can sign up for your account, get $350 of VIP bonuses. You'll be able to place some bets in a safe, ethical environment. You too can predict who's going to win CS games for a living, just like Duncan does. It's great. And obviously, thanks to all our patrons, especially those that have stuck with us despite the Sargon of a card nonsense, which we still haven't had the conversation yet. I'm sure me and Duncan will going into 2019. What do you love more, Duncan? Money or principles, homie?
I am not involved in politics, and I stay in my domain of esports. And within esports, they haven't removed anyone who's really important. So I will not be giving away that free 2.1k that I get from my Patreon, while I do indeed like Sargon of Card and other people, and wish they could also.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, didn't it? Because wasn't he one of your first interviews on your Thorin Talk to Thorin?
Can't lie, that is one of those things where, even though, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, I have sort of like, if in some sort of a dystopian future in 10 years, I'll probably be killed for just having done that interview, you know, like.
Yeah, oh, sure.
It's one of those links where I already know people are going to use that angle, so whatever.
It's already cost you more, you know, works and job and stuff than you can imagine anyway. Whatever.
At least I'm based as fuck though. So
yeah,
there is that. And in the end, what price can you put on being based as fuck?
I don't know, mate. Worth its weight in gold, you red-pilled master.
Tell you what,
right?
If there's anyone out there who really, you know, you get those weird people who like will offer to have like, you know, a fucking team logo tattooed on themselves for the lulz or whatever, like that guy who had Dossier put on. If you really want to make us laugh, I mean, I wouldn't advise you do this because it's your body, but just get a tattoo of Zeus with those lips on your back.
Oh, mate, I'd pay for that.
The Angelina Jolie lips, though.
Yeah, obviously. If anyone wants to do that, hit me up. I'll definitely.
I mean, just getting the Angelina Jolie with those lips would be enough, to be honest, man.
Yeah.
We'll sponsor that.
Right, anyway. Okay, so thanks to our $100 patrons, Botvic, Detlef Insomniac, and Jerky's Minion. Thanks for the questions. Duncan didn't mean it. Thanks to our $50 patrons, Benakagi Assassin, Carv, Daniel Plamanov Yordnov, Dieter Dornov Christensen, Madsen, Manuel Stockley, Marcus Kiumpa, Nostradamus, Pete Bidstrup, Reykjavik on Steam, Roosty, Sartawar, TC Owens, Watch Doge, and William Southern. That was it. I don't think we'll do another episode of By the Numbers before Christmas. Going to wind it down, but we'll definitely get one before the new year. We'll keep you posted. And until then, take care of yourselves.